Hi all, David Sankey here from QuackerWorks. Today I want to show a little utility that we've developed to allow the automated packaging of Greentree systems. In order to do that, I have a Greentree system here. It's a demo system with a number of add-ins on it. So if we're just going to help about, we can see up in the top right hand corner there, this is on Greentree version 2021.2.0. and the latest version released by MYOB is 2021.4. We also have the Enable Us framework installed on the system at version 10.24, and if we go down to the systems, we can see that the system also has the Apps for Greentree framework loaded. So in terms of packaging this, if you were to package it using the standard process, you'd have to go to multiple FTP sites to download those packages. You'd have to do multiple updates, and there are a couple debugs that should be applied along the way because there are some potentially issues with methods and error. Now, the GT packager will do all of that automatically for you. The system I have is in a folder called Greentree Demo on my C drive. So let's get started with packaging this using GT Packager. The first thing I'll do is download the utility, and that is available on our FTP site at ftp.enableus.com. If you go there and into GT Packager, and you can see a GT Packager setup. I'm simply going to grab that file and I will drop it into the demo folder where the Greentree system is. So if we go into that demo folder, let it package, there we've got the GT Packager setup. If I run that setup, it will set itself up to do the packaging. Now, quite importantly, there is no actual Windows installation. It simply copies files down. So if you want to remove it at a later date, deleting the files removes the GT Packager off your file altogether, off your system altogether. Except the first screen, it's accept the default destination screen and say install, and it does go to the internet and it does pull down some additional files that it will require, and does a bit of logging for you, so to check what files are going to be needed for the system. And there we go, that's the GT Packager setup. Click OK. Now what it has done, just to reiterate, it has not done any installations. It never touches the registry. It has copied down a number of files and put them in a folder called GT Packager. Those are the files that it has copied down and put in there. And quite importantly for later on, there is a logs file so you can see everything it's done. I'll come on to that a little bit later. In terms of running GT Packager, the setup puts in a little file there, a little shortcut to run itself, and simply double click on that and it will go away and package the system. And in packaging the system, what it does is it goes in and it checks what version that system is on, it checks what schemas it has loaded into that system, and it goes to a setup library document we've got of what needs to be put on and in what order, what packages need to be applied and in what order, and it then goes and downloads those packages from the relevant FTP sites. So here right now you can see it's downloading the 2021.3 package from the Greentree packaging site. The previous screen, if I saw it as it flashed by, it can be very quick, was downloading the package for the Enable Us schema. So it goes away, it knows where all the FTP locations are, and it pulls the packages it needs down and puts them in on the system. Just while it's doing that, there we are, we're running. Just to touch on a few things, it is aware of Enable Us and the Apps for Greentree schemas. It's also aware of a number of custom schemas that have been advised to QuackerWorks, so it will take into account all of those. If you are a VAD or Greentree developer and you've developed packages for Greentree that need to be installed alongside other packages as part of the upgrades, let us know, we can add it. As you can see here, it's finished downloading the files from the various FTP sites, and it's now going through the packaging process. It is using bog standard GT Packager for this. It is literally just doing what you would do manually and automating that process. In terms of GT Package Manager, the Greentree Packager Manager, it is also very aware. It knows what versions of Pacman are needed for each version of Greentree. So as it goes through the packaging, if it needs to, it will update the Greentree Package Manager as well in that process. Now this is going to take quite a while to package. So what I've been showing, I'll show you a few other little tips and tricks and things around GT Packager as it's packaging. The first thing I'm going to show you while that's packaging is that there is a lot of help on this, and I am using the standard out-the-box configuration where you just run it. It assumes you want to do everything as standard. It assumes that you want to go to the very latest version, and it will take it all the way through and package that Greentree system up to the latest version. However, there are a lot of other things that this utility can do. If I open up a Google window, that's going to be in the way, isn't it? Let's see if we can just move that down there a little bit while it's packaging. It will quite often pop up. And we'll go to our kb.aod-cloud.com knowledge base. If you haven't logged in and registered on the site, I recommend you do. It is free, doesn't cost anything, and it's got lots of tips and tricks and things around Greentree and MYOB Advanced. I'm just going to, in the search bar, put GT Packager, and here it finds a few things. I'll select the first option, the first one that comes up, and here is the knowledge base help article on GT Packager. As you can see, there is a lot of there's a bit of licensing information. This is done under the Creative Commons license. It is free at this stage. Use it at your own risk. Yes, you can email us with recommendations on enhancements, but it is technically an unsupported product. As long as you accept that, that's fine. We're happy to try and help where we can. Quite importantly, the auto packaging function was added in around the 2020.1 version of Greentree, and so we generally recommend, if you're going to do the auto packaging, the Greentree system should be at least at version 2020.3 or later. It may run before that, but no guarantees. The idea behind GT Packager is just to automate the packaging of sites, so you don't have to go through and find all the GT packaging. And if you're new to Greentree and you're not sure how to package it, it kind of looks after all of those complications for you. You don't have to know where the FTP sites are or anything like that. The quick start is basically running through the steps that I've just shown you. So installation, just download it and install it, and it sets it up. And if you just run it as using the defaults as I have, it will package your system to the latest version. You can run it from a batch file or the command line, and there are command line options. So this is great if you are packaging a number of systems. So at Quackerworks, the reason we developed this GT Packager is so that we can automatically test the release of our packages across a number of different systems. So we've got a number of standard systems all set up, and an automated process goes through and automatically packages them all before we do a full release. So you can do things like run it silently. It won't pop up messages for the user if there are defaults. You can specify how detailed the logs are, etc. Number of other components, I won't go through them all, but you can use GT Packager to do specific packaging, which I'll show you very shortly, where you can specify exactly what packages you want to apply. Auto package is what we're doing here. GT Packager will just automatically determine what's required. You can back up the system, you can certify the system, you can run JB util functions on it. All of those sort of things, so that there are a number of other options, particularly for more complex packaging and upgrade scenarios. We'll go, just so you're aware, there's a whole lot of settings you can put in an ini file, and we'll go over and have a look at an ini file. But what each one of those settings do and how they can be applied is also listed here. So just picking on a couple things, you can set a package to GT version. If you put a version in there, it will tell GT Packager to only package up to that level. There are a number of things that are set by default. So pre-check FTP files. What that does is it says, go and check, you can download all the FTP files before you start the packaging. That way, if there's a problem downloading the FTP off the FTP site, you'll find out at the beginning of the process, not after it's been running for an hour or two, should you be packaging a big site. And you can configure all the different steps, and it's got examples. It's got specific settings if you want to do certifying. So built into the system is the ability to certify Greentree, and it does by default. It will go through and certify the system after packaging it. And you can say how many times it should try and certify it, how many times, whether it should repair after certify. Again, a few examples, backups, JDB util functions, how many workers to use. And you can, if you wanted to download, if you've got custom packs that you want to include in maybe a manual configuration or in your setup, and they are on a different FTP site, you can also go in and configure the download of those from other FTP sites. And in terms of warnings and meanings of those warnings, there's a whole article on errors and warnings that come out of Greentree Packager. So to get information on the GT Packager, go to kb.aod-cloud.com and search for GT Packager, and you'll find all sorts of goodies on that. So I'll just take that out the way. As you can see, yay, we're already at 51 of 62 packs, going up to version 21.3. It is on the screen, and you don't want to interfere with this. I'll just move it as long as it is putting a log up on the screen as it's going through the process, so you can see what it's doing. And if I just open up File Explorer and I go into GT Packager and talk through some of these things. Now, typically you don't want to do what I'm doing. I happen to know that the text editor that I use, Notepad++, doesn't lock the files for reading, but I will point out a few of these files and what they're doing. It does come packaged with its own FTP client. We use WinSCP in the background, and just working backwards through these files, package.ini. If you don't specify the ini file that GT Packager should use for packaging Greentree, it will create its own with the default settings. And this is the default GT Packager that it creates. Very important, this package.ini is not a full ini file. It is a ini file that has been optimized specifically for packaging and certifying Greentree. It does not have client information, etc. in it. It is, do not take this package.ini and think you can use it on a standard Greentree system for normal operations. It is optimized for packaging. Just close that. GT Packager ini, this is the ini file that holds the configuration for what GT Packager should do. If it's missing when you start GT Packager will automatically create it. So with defaults, and the defaults are to auto package. I'll just open it up and we can talk through a few of those things. So up at the top section under General, this is where you can specify the ini file to be used for packaging. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it does create its own if you don't put one in. Do you want to retain log history? Often you might say true to that. Personally, I like to say false, and what that does is it goes and if it's true, it just adds to existing log files. If you say false, it removes old log files and creates new ones, so you've got fresh log files to look at without history in it. Some of these should always be there. Empty packages folder, so remove old packages. There are reasons you might want to change that, but typically not. Do you want the system to stop if it hits a compile error? Now, typically you don't, but if you're a developer and you want to make sure that your code is compiling and applying, you might set that to true and it will just stop if it hits a compile error and not carry on packaging. Does it stop if it hits an error? A little nifty one. If you're packaging a demo system, so for all you demo dollies and sales engineers, out there packaging demo systems, this is a great way of keeping your demo system up to date, and if that's set to true, it will download and apply a new maintenance license if required. Level of logging for, in general, what if you're doing backups, what's the compression level, where do you send the backups, all those are good things. And down here, these are the steps that it's got to take. So the very first step by default is to auto package, and that says, hey, go away and do everything automatically yourself. And in that process, what the system has done on this version we're packaging now, it's opened up Greentree. It can see that it's serial number 2. It says that it's got MYOB Greentree 2021.2 installed. It's got apps for Greentree 2021.2 installed, and it's got Enable Us 2021.2. So that's the starting point. And here it's just adding all the steps that it's going to do. So it's saying the first step it's going to do is package it to 2021.3, and off the apps for Greentree site, it's going to download that package. Off the Enable Us site, it's going to download that package, and off the Greentree site, it's going to download this package, and the Pacman it's going to use, it's also going to download from the Greentree site, and that's the Pacman it will use. Once it's done that, it knows that at this version, there is a STP2 phase 2 allowance debug that needs to be applied. So after packaging to that level, it's going to download off the Greentree FTP site this debug pack, and it's going to apply it. Then if nothing else here after that, it's just going to go and check that, do some checks. It's going to check for any methods in error, and this ini file will update itself. So if when it's running this step, it finds their methods in error, it will go in and insert more steps to be done. So you can see as it goes through all the steps that it's going to take in order to package up. And that's how it runs. Now, this will carry on packaging. I'll just touch on a couple other things. Hopefully by the time I've finished, it will have finished packaging. So let's just move that down there. These are its program files. Staging, you can ignore. It's just a temporary location that GT Packager uses. For example, in this packaging process, we've said download all the files before you start packaging to make sure we can. Well, it downloads them all and it puts them into the staging location, and it will remove those afterwards. Logging. Now, in the logs file, there are a number of logs that it maintains. This is your standard Greentree log. The FTP logs for downloading from the FTP site are in there, so I will, use that. So there you can see the FTP log. So if for some reason it couldn't download off the FTP site, you'll see it in there. And its log, the log it's maintaining, the GT Packager log, is in here. So at the beginning, and you can see all the steps that it took. And if you want more detailed logs to come through here, you just change the logging level in the GT Packager ini file, and you'll get a more verbose or less verbose log. So here we are, you can see it successfully determined what needs to be done. Well, starting at the beginning, it went through, it found out all the information about the system it's about to package. It started the auto packaging. It created the step to package it to 2021.3. It created the step to apply the STP2 allowance. It went and grabbed the instruction files, and that was all successful. And it's now in the process of packaging. So I'll just get that out the way. And it's on the last package. At this point, I will pause the video and we'll come back when it's finished. And there we go. That packaging session is looks like it's now complete, and so it will move on to the next step. And it looks like it has found some. There's the debug going on, so it's packaged it up to 2021.3 and is now applying the debug. And there we are, it's going into, it's finished packaging up to 2021.3.0, and it's now going through the next version to take it to 2021.4. And just to show some of that workings, if we go and look inside the GT Packager ini, whoops, you will see that it's now added more steps. So here, that was the first round it did to take it to 2020.3. It said, right, I finished that whole process. We're going to go do what's needed to go to 2020.4. So it starts the whole process again. It looks at it says everything's successful at 2021.3. We're going to apply 2 apps for Greentree packages to take it to 2021.4.1 because that's the latest apps for Greentree package. There's an enable us package to go on, and there's a MYOB package to go on. And there's a debug that needs to go on, and so we'll let that go away and do its thing. And there we go, it's now packaged to 2021.4. Just let Pacman close. GT Packager will check if there are any methods in error, and if there are methods in error, GT Packager will look to see if we know or there's a record of fixes for the specific packages in error that are found. Obviously, if there are no packages in error, then it will go through and just clean up. And there you go. The system is now packaged, no errors or warnings found. As I showed earlier, you can go into the logs file, you can go to the GT Packager log file, you'll spot each success for each major step. If there are any errors or warnings, it will be in there. And this is just using standard Greentree Pacman. If you want to remove GT Packager from this particular Greentree system, simply highlight the GT Packager files and press delete, and that's as though the GT Packager was never there. If I go into tools now, log in a single user and just validate that it is packaged up. I won't bother loading that. Go to help about. There you are. We're at 2021.4. We're now on enable us version 10.25, and everything is packaged up. Hope you found that useful, and let us know how it goes. Have a good day. Bye now.